here. Okay. You good? Okay. Today's podcast is brought to you by drinkers like you. To help support the show, visit patreon.com/haveadrinkshow.
Today we're talking about drinking. Yes, I know we usually do, but we're going to talk about people who really put their livers into it. Now, we don't want to glorify drinking on the show, but honestly, some of these stories are truly insane and deserve to be told for good and ill. So, come along as we tell you some of these tales, and maybe join us as we have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink, the show where you learn along with us about what you drink. I'm Brittany Lee Walker.
I'm Justin Frazier.
I'm Christopher Walker.
And I'm Casey Price.
Hey,
Oh.
everybody.
Howdy.
How's everybody doing?
Oh, just peachy.
You know, being adults, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess you guys get to look at your children living their lives all carefree and happy and just think, you sons of us.
Well,
Hmm.
nice. I didn't until just now.
Good. Then my work here is done. We've the show served its purpose. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. It's been a time is what it is. Summer is always busy, and
Hot.
also, why is it still summer? This is dumb, and I hate it.
We want fall. Get here, fall.
So, it's like the Eddie Izzard joke about puberty being one day. It should
Oh,
be. It should be like summer should be one day. Get the fucker over with. Just.
I mean, pretty much in Kentucky, that's how it tends to go. There'll be one day where it's like 120 with 1,000% humidity.
That was like a whole week.
That's
We haven't hit that yet. We haven't had any days where the actual temperature's been over 100.
That's true. We haven't hit over 100 that, but we have had a solid week in the 90s to upper 90s, or somewhere in the 90s with 100% humidity.
We've had heat index over 100. Now, yes, you are very much correct there.
But the important thing is the humidity thing, and this is the time of year when I'm like, can I just step out of the car and not have my glasses fog up from the humidity, or I don't know, have a shower and then walk outside and immediately start sweating?
It was so hot last week.
How hot was it?
I came home from work and immediately trimmed my beard down. Just the amount of time it took me from like leaving work to like, come home, and just like the brief instance of being outside the car, I just came home and just went, nope. Yeah, just bring this back down.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to do that. I'm always just like, no, what do I look like? I look like a grizzly bear that just caught a salmon out of the river and all the water running off of its maw. And I'm just like, no, it's just how we look.
It's how you look. It's that or John Oliver.
Yeah, I can't face that.
Can't look at that again.
No.
Well, all right. Anything fun been going on with the Walkers, or has it just been dying of heat?
So we have Disney coming up in about a month, and Emmett has decided the family costumes for the Halloween party. We shall all be Smurfs.
I approve.
I mean, sure. Les Trumps.
He will be Brainy, and it is decided I will be Papa Smurf. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to be the younger Papa Smurf because my beard is not
He's
white.
got like the brown beard. Yeah.
Or you could lean into it. There is hair bleach and dye.
Here's the question. One, your son has chosen the wrong Smurf.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to tell you.
it is what it is.
But just a bit of Smurf trivia. How tall are Smurfs?
I don't know.
2.5 inches.
There's a canon answer, and I know it. I'm just seeing what everyone else thinks. Because
Well-
it blew people's mind when I told them this.
They live in mushrooms, so
Uh-huh.
Can't be that large, but based on the newer Netflix show, which is where all of my referencing can be done now, because it's all we watch all day, every hour, every minute, every second. Gargamel can fit about 3 Smurfs in his hand. So I would say at the largest, that's going to be like 3 inches tall. At the largest.
So Smurfs are medieval, or set in a medieval time. So they don't have standard measurements as we would have them. Smurfs, by their own measurements, say that all Smurfs are 3 apples high.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
that
So
seems-
how big is Gargamel and Azrael?
giants.
But,
Well-
but there's other people too. So like the other question is, how big are the apples they're using to measure?
So, so as the show portrays them, there are giants in the show. They are roughly the same size as Gargamel.
Yeah, but there's also like the knights the knight and the squire that come by every so often, and they're roughly the same. Well, one of them's roughly the same size as Gargamel. The other one's half the size and is called a dwarf. So I told this to somebody, they're like, there's no way they're 3 apples. You can't fit 3 apples into a mushroom.
Exactly.
I'm
Unless
like-
it's a big
like,
mushroom.
He's like, look, Payot, is that his name? The artist and creator of the Smurfs, just said a lot of stuff, and also had a lot of unfortunate opinions.
I'm sure.
He was very much against. His editor forced him to put in Smurfette because he went, "Why would they need a woman? She's just going to ruin everything."
Which is why I like the new. Well, I'm sure it doesn't run currently, but like the newer version on Netflix, because not only is Smurfette like I can take care of my damn self, but there's also another village of all girls.
It's not a village.
Well, true.
That's
It's another. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
because all the Smurf women, except for Smurfette, and don't know why she stayed, all the others like turned wild and literally just went to the forest to be hunter-gatherers under their matriarch.
Willow.
Willow, which I guess she had like a falling out with Papa Smurf.
Which
and
I
took
feel
all
like
them to the woods, and now they're all just like naturalists. And
See, that's a
Awesome
different canon
hair.
because originally Smurfette was created by Gargamel as a trap for the Smurfs. There are no natural-born female Smurfs. Smurfette and Sassy were both created by Gargamel. I watched way too much Smurfs as a child.
anyone remember the Smurf Dark Ride at Kings Island?
Yes.
There's a video of it on YouTube. I had to go watch it just to be sure I wasn't crazy. And
You
I
were-
was like, I know I rode that as a child.
In fairness, Chris, you could have remembered it, and like our one shared brain cell would probably,
It transmitted it to you.
yeah.
Well, so my brain, because I can remember when Snow White's Scary Adventure was at Disney World at the same time as Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was actually still at Disney World, when rides could actually be scary.
Mhm.
And that like traumatized me as a child, but somehow it melded together with the Smurf ride at Kings Island. So I'm like, I've got all these like weird memories of like Smurfs and Snow White and the Evil Queen and Gargamel, and none of it makes sense. And then
All right.
dying and going to hell while riding around in the automobile.
That's how it happens.
It is. All right. So Disney planning and Smurf costumes. Anything else?
we're gonna go see the new Ninja Turtles movie tomorrow.
That'd be fun. Well, all
Excited
right.
about that one.
Yeah.
Most reports have it being the best Ninja Turtles has ever been. And
Oh,
That's high praise because that first live action Ninja Turtles movie is real good.
yeah, Quick aside, something just changed on the mics.
Yeah.
It sounds like it went to a room mic or something. There's a lot of gain coming in, a lot of background noise.
We'll have to edit this out. I'm double checking to see what mic is using.
Oh, there it went.
And it's back.
Oh, that's me then.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's like suddenly the fish tank is like sitting next to me.
Suddenly, these fish are next to me.
Reduce backdoor noise?
That did it.
That did it.
All right.
Yeah. Wow.
Checkbox does checkboxy stuff.
It does. That's like magic too, because like it was like a little bit of something before. It's completely gone now.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a very slight thing for it, and then it blew up for no reason. I don't know what. I think you just got quiet and suddenly.
Yeah, it's because I wasn't doing anything for a minute.
And it picked up that sound.
I was like, I need to be extra sensitive.
Yeah.
Brittany, a second to mark that as an edit.
Yeah, I'll find it.
We'll get there.
Won't be hard when you're going back through. Okay. So we'll pick back up with Bob. What have you been up to?
Yeah, not well. I would say not a whole lot. That's be my usual answer. But I've had last weekend was busy. I had to make a 1-day trip back to Eastern Kentucky. Had a lot of events going on. Had to go see some people in a hospital, and everyone's more or less fine now, recovering, and had to. There are HIPAA reasons I can't talk about it. But there's but also my aunt was getting married.
Yes,
so,
you mentioned that before. Well, I don't know if on the show, but privately we talked of it.
Yeah, so I drove back. She got married at you guys would perhaps know this. Our listeners will have no idea, but Camp Shawnee.
Oh yeah, I went to several camps there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I've been there like once years ago, but it'd been a while. So I'm driving out there, just going like in my head, vaguely remembering where it was at. I'm just like, this gravel road's got to end sooner or later. There's got to be a building. I know it's somewhere out here. But it was nice. I wish there was a lot of fluid planning changes, like up into like that very last week. Wish I had known that they were doing the wedding outside though.
Oh.
I went there with no hat, no sunblock, and I thought I got by okay. I thought I got into the shade fast enough, but yeah, I got a little toasted. Mostly healed up now, but it was fine. I realized when I was down there though that I have cousins that used to we would see each other every day because we all lived in the same holler. I haven't seen them one of them at least in about a decade, and I was literally just like, yeah, no, like they didn't recognize me for a while, and I was like, yeah, that's fair. There have been some changes. But
razors were purchased.
What was funny was we've never had really dancing at any of the weddings that we had among our family. We're not a dancing
Footloose town.
That it was on my mom's side that they were old regular Baptist. It's Footloose town.
No fun.
No fun. But my aunt had said they're going to be playing some music. And one was mixed entirely too loud. So I was like, we were sitting there trying to talk and you could just hear, it's like, geez, come on, guys, read the room. But at one point they kick into the cha-cha slide and my aunt and some other people who start doing it. But what's funny is I'm just sitting there going, oh God, I know every word of this. And I looked at my dad and he's like, what is this? And I went, you've never had to hear this before, have you? No.
How?
So I have many a story with that song because that was all collective. Our informative years is when that
Mhm.
came out. That was
Mhm.
been what, like we were all freshmen, sophomores, something like that.
There were years at 4-H camp for me.
Yeah,
I
I would say it
even
was.
yeah.
It is a 4-H song in my head. It's just, yep, let's put
For me,
this
it was
on
a
and I'll
lot
do
of
some dancing.
at the beach. I'd be out. There was at Myrtle Beach. I can't. The Attic. I don't know if anyone ever had been there. It was the teen club. Like literally, it was you had to be a teenager to get in, and there
I
was
know of it. Yeah.
obviously no drinking. But for 2 years when I was finally at age to go and wanted to go, that was like the only thing they played. And so I would be there and be like, God, because this was my very not quite emo, we'll say gothic stage when I'm wearing gigantic black
Yeah.
Jinkos and all
Mhm.
that. And I'm just like, shoot me. It's like, because I'm finally old enough to be here, and now I just don't want to effing be here.
Yeah, that was but yeah, that was interesting watching them try to figure it out. Like my parents listening, they're going, "What is this?" Then was immediately followed up by watching my aunt and one of my older cousins try to dance to it, and one of them forgetting which one was left. So they immediately just bounced right into each other, and I went, "Yep, that tracks."
Every generation has a song like that where they literally just walk you through it.
It's line dancing. They just changed the thing for it. Which was
So-
funny when we mentioned the electric slide before, because it was
The electric slide, and then what was the other one at 4-H camp for us was the King Tut thing.
King Tut. Yeah. I think the
Current event.
hustle might have been the thing. Yeah. What's up, Casey?
Current event with the Cha Cha Slide, the creator DJ Casper passed away this week.
Oh, well.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Today I learned.
Yeah.
TIL.
Him and the voice of Dale from King of the Hill.
Man.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
We shared it in the thing. In our
You
group
could
chat.
have.
And
I
there
don't-
was
I
already
don't-
there
Brittany
was
doesn't pay attention to us in there.
I
Fair.
didn't know what
there was
that.
the meme of
I don't
death
know.
showing up, and it's just like instead of because it's the dog thing when it's like, was I a
Was it?
good boy? It's Dale, and he goes "Cha!" and runs away.
Well, see, I saw the picture and I was like, "Yeah, it's Dale." Okay, but I didn't. None of this ever clicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Died.
Uh,
And then we had the discussion about whether or not the revival of King of the Hill can move on. I think it can. They probably won't.
yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Because I mean, you've got Dale and Luann are both gone now, so
Yeah.
it's like we're really chipping away.
Lucky
Wasn't
too.
Another voice too.
Lucky.
thought-
Tom Petty.
Oh yeah, Tom.
No,
Petty.
yeah, but I was
Well, that
thinking
makes it
Brittany Murphy
easier.
did another voice
You
in
could-
addition to.
You can write Lucky out pretty easily.
Lucky and
Yeah.
Luann, another tornado came and Hank wasn't there to rescue Luann and Lucky from the trailer park. And then it's easy to write Dale out, as in like the FBI finally, took some of his crap seriously, or he,
Or he's deep into QAnon and like has gone into actual hiding. I don't know.
he is Q.
It's still. I don't know.
God, that would be an episode they would have done, right? Like Dale creates a weird conspiracy theorist collective that takes off, then he's essentially like a Q knockoff. Like I could see that episode of King of the Hill.
Yeah, they probably would have done that.
Yeah. Casey, what have you been up to?
Brighten this mood.
I ain't brought in nothing. We've had a mutual friend at the brewery this weekend, and this week doing some photos, trying to get our social media photos up to date and all that good stuff. So it's been interesting to try to get all that. It's good to see photography again. That's good.
Yeah.
A past hobby of yours.
Yeah. Well,
That-
and I'm not saying mine's good either.
You did our wedding pictures, and they were good.
Oh,
It's,
man.
well, I appreciate thank you. I'm just
It-
saying, it's been a while since I've picked up a camera.
It's real fun listening to our mutual friend look at someone else's pictures and just be like, God, this is trash.
Oh yes.
Just like, what are they?
Yes.
What? And I like, he's like, you have to see this, and I look at it and go, why is everything green? Exactly.
Yep. So Posen Food being a beer fluffer this week.
Just stirring up your things, or doing a little extra hit on top or something.
Yeah.
This beer was
The
poured
straw
20
trick.
minutes ago. We need to refresh the head on it.
So just getting
I
those going.
was gonna make a sound, and it was just no.
Yeah, it's a different sound, isn't it? Oh, I did get a new board game.
Oh,
Well,
ooh.
not new necessarily this week, but
New
I
to
tried
you.
playing it, and I have updates. So, Mr. President is the name of the board game. Bob,
Okay.
have we talked about this yet? Have you seen it?
I don't think so. We talked about a
So-
different board game last I saw you.
This is the era of 2000 to 2020, and you
Mhm.
play as president during that period. And if you're doing well, you could get basically reelected and all that. But it is such an in-depth and complex board game. The little pips that you punch out for everything that could be going on at any point in time. There's there's 6 pages, and there's probably 150 per page, and all of them are sort of in play at any point on the game board.
Mhm.
And so you're playing president. You've got to manage wars over in foreign lands. Everything is kind of to be as it is. Like they're like, oh, there's civil unrest here. The Taliban are here. And in this area, and then you've also got like domestic policy that you've got to be setting, and what your promises during the campaign were versus what the people want, and just a very all while North Korea and who's the other one? Iran are doing nuclear proliferation and trying to figure out when they're going to launch the nukes. Just
You lost me long ago on that.
a real in-depth game.
But it honestly goes back in my head. I'm just picturing it playing out like the Model UN thing in that episode of Community, and I just keep hearing
The moon.
was it Garrett? Is that his name? When he's like, "Crisis alert!"
Oh, and Community. Sorry, I'm thinking of Parks and Rec, where it's like, we are representatives of the moon. Yeah, Crisis Alert. Yeah, that's
Crisis
Community.
alert! And then they solve it by creating a parallel universe that has to slip in and solve all of our universe's problems.
What is funny is there are 2 extremes you can do with board games. You can go very complex to kind of like mechanically to kind of like keep all these plates spinning to figure out what you're doing, which sounds like kind of what this is.
Yes.
There's the other end, which is diplomacy, where mechanically it's fairly simple. You write down your orders, a turn order is established, and everything kind of goes in turn order. And the complex part is you playing with the other people, because deals happen, support goes down, because you're playing World War One, and you can't move on another country without someone else's support, and so you've got to make back alley deals and break them, and friendships are lost in that game. That's what I was thinking of as you're talking about this. Like, man, this is like it is trying to fill a similar idea of how complex politics and
Yes.
these sort of things can be, but they do it by going mechanically light, but knowing that the players will make it complicated on their own.
Oh, no. Yeah. So this is a 1-player game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that makes it even even more complex, because the real randomness that's in it, there's dice rolls on whether your vice president went out and was able to win over Congress and something, and there's things like that. But the complexity is you've got various different, and every game being different, because it's you draw cards of certain crises. Like as soon as I got there, like the first game I set up, I draw the first card and it's, oh, there was a scandal during your election. And so now you've got to deal with like public opinion being lower than it would be right from the very start of the game.
Mm. How often do you attempt to prevent a peaceful transition of power?
Ooh, I don't know. I've not gotten to that yet,
Okay, just curious.
but I'm sure there is an opportunity for that to happen
God, I hope not.
in another country, not in this one.
Yeah. Of course. All right. I think we have a topic today.
We're not that drunk. Cheeky bastards. We're not that drunk. We're not that drunk. We're not that drunk.
We are not.
Everyone we're talking about was.
One shared brain cell.
And I'm looking at the very first one we're going to talk about. And in my brain, I'm like, I know it's a bad idea. But can me and Bob live a day life?
They did that on the Whiskey Tribe.
Oh,
They had Andrew Heaton on, and one of them and him went all day drinking and smoking cigars like Churchill did.
I would have puked in like an hour.
So yeah. First up, we're going to be talking about 4 different historical figures who are known for prodigious drinking. We're not going to try to glorify it a whole lot necessarily, although some of these stories are going to be funny. That's just part and parcel with what we're doing. Please drink responsibly. We're going to say that now, and we're going to say it later, but
Do not follow in the footsteps of this great men.
do not follow in the footsteps of people like Winston Churchill. Because Winston Churchill is famous for many things. Being prime minister during World War II, pithy quotes, getting thousands of people killed in the Gallipoli campaign of World War I. Okay, maybe not as many people know about that one, but
Follow you on that one. Yeah.
I'm-
go for it.
no, Sabaton
should.
has an entire song about it, like this woeful ballad about the men lost.
he tries to make excuses for it in his books. But you know what? We're not here to talk about that. I want to, but we're not here to talk about that. But what he is also known for, at the same level of these topics, is his prodigious drinking. Churchill had been a heavy drinker most of his life and was capable of racking up quite the bill for it. In 1936, he reportedly had a tab with his wine merchant that was the equivalent of today's equivalent of $75,000.
His wine merchant. Just let that settle in.
I mean, come on, it's Churchill. I would say he comes from old money that ran out of money and married a rich American. So he got a new influx of money, and then he spent it all on drinking and gambling.
I mean,
tracks.
what would you spend it on?
Drinking
In D&D
in D&D.
or Warhammer?
Warhammer.
Not working anymore.
Sad thing is, I'd probably still work. I would just like keep it on the day. Like, yeah, it's fine. No one bothers me.
You take the Henry Cavill route. It's like, how are you so sexy and so nerdy and do so much? And it's like, I have to work so much to, fuel
Support this hobby.
yeah, to support my Warhammer 40K hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have like 20 armies and be bringing in, anything under $1 million a year.
Right. Churchill was able to use this alcoholic part of himself for the greater good, and he helped in the world. Used it to help the war effort in World War II. Stick with me. This is true. If he used it to wine and dine FDR, White House staffers in FDR's administration, had a special term for when Churchill came to visit, quote, Winston hours, unquote.
Sure.
Basically, during this time, the president and the prime minister would get 3 sheets to the wind. Supposedly, Roosevelt needed to sleep for 10 hours a night for 3 nights to recover from Winston hours. And FDR was no slouch drinking himself. Winston was once quoted as saying, when I was younger, I made it a rule never to take a strong drink before lunch. Now it is my rule never to do so before breakfast.
A great quote from Terry Pratchett crops up in my mind there about Vimes when it's what was it? When he's getting married and he's getting kicked out of the watch, and when he just got the news and he goes out drinking for the first time in a while, and he's just like stone faced drunk, and they realize it and they're like, "Don't tell me he went out drinking on an empty stomach." No, I think he put some alcohol in it first.
Speaking of that, let's run down Winston Churchill's itinerary for drinking. This is the schedule that perhaps we should try to live out one day. And keep in mind, he did this while in his 60s and 70s.
And running a war.
Yeah. 7:30, wake up, remain
There's a
in
war
bed.
on.
Yeah. Wake up, remain in bed, eat breakfast, read newspaper, work, glass of whiskey and soda. Now, his whiskey and sodas would be like 2 ounces of whiskey in like a Collins glass, and he'd fill up the rest in soda. So it would be diluted down some. But there'd be like, one or so of those. 11 a.m., out of bed, stroll around the garden, supervising estate, whiskey and soda.
Mm-hmm.
This says it in like military time, so I'm going to do that so I don't accidentally screw up and say the wrong time. 1,300 hours, multi-course lunch, imperial pint of champagne. Pint of champagne.
As you do.
That's the best part of it. An imperial pint of champagne. Not a glass of champagne. No, it was an imperial pint.
So,
Okay.
so the key there is imperial pint,
Mm-hmm.
which is not 16 ounces.
Okay.
It's 20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big boy pint.
Pint big. Yeah. 15, 30 hours, work from study, glass of cognac.
Because it's like, you
It's 3:30 in the afternoon.
yeah,
and you're
it's
like,
time
"Eh."
to switch over.
You need to relax.
Well, speaking of relaxing, 1,700 hours. Hour and a half nap / siesta, a habit he picked up from his time in Cuba. At that point, yes,
I mean, you have, yeah.
you've
This is
You're-
the perfect
you're
way to
ge-
do things.
you've had a good buzz going all day. It's time to sleep it off a bit because at 18:30, wake up, bathe, and dress for dinner, so that at 2,000 hours, lengthy dinner with guests, imperial pint of champagne.
A nap so hard you have to take a bath after. That's pretty good.
Oh man, right?
I need to know what the glass specifically looks like for the imperial pint of champagne.
Was
I'm
it just
I'm picturing a champagne glass, like the old school champagne glasses. It's just real big.
or
So,
is it, was
you
it
know-
literally just a beer pint glass where you just like
Yeah.
fill it up?
You know those like the pub, and you get those glasses that are kind of straight sided, but they've got a bump
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
2/3 up the.
Yeah.
the British
they're-
pint glasses. That's what.
Yeah, they're technically called no-nick or non-nick pints, but basically, I say no-nick because they can't nick the edges of glass when you click them together because they get stopped by the rim of the glass that's below it. But yeah, those are like sometimes when you go into like the pub, it's a true 16-ounce pint, but yeah, traditionally it should be a 20-ounce
Mhm.
if you're getting a real pint.
I just
Well-
get the Blues Brothers thing in my head when they're at the fancy restaurant. It's like
How much
wrong
for your
glass, sir. He's just like holding up one of those pint glasses, doing the Belushi head. Yeah, fill it up.
Midnight, work and study, more cognac. Unclear how much more.
Just more.
You just, yeah.
1 to 3 a.m. bedtime.
I already have problems with this schedule. I haven't seen that side of 1 a.m. in a long time.
Well, a schedule like this is bound to leave you feeling something throughout the day, as well as something else entirely throughout the next morning. It should be worth noting that the whiskey and sodas the Churchill would drink would be watered down, but even watered down, the amount of drinking he did, probably kept a low buzz going throughout the day. Churchill was fond of dictating notes well into the wee hours of the morning. There were stories that the day went that the day's effect as the day went on, the effects of alcohol were perhaps getting to him. There's a story that members of his cabinet, when reading the notes that were there from the night before, remarked, "Winston must have been in his cups last night with war plans." Probably best that he was in a democratic system rather than with competent subordinates, rather than a dictatorship where he had the final say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while we don't want to linger too long on the question of how responsible it is for a leader to drink at Winston's level every day, we'd be remiss if we did not have a couple of good Churchill quotes about drinking in this. So I've got two real quick ones here. One of them I'm sure you've heard. This Churchill historian Michael Richards described a game Churchill was fond of playing with his friend Frederick Lindemann, an Oxford Don who is the government's chief scientific advisor. "Prof," Churchill would command, "pray calculate the total quantity of champagne, wine, and spirits I have consumed thus far in my life, and tell me how much of this room it would fill." Lindemann would pull out his slide rule, pretend to make calculations, and announce something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, Winston, would only reach our ankles." And Churchill would mock sigh, "How much to do, how little time remains."
Wow.
Those are the friends you want.
Mm-hmm. And then there's one of the more notable anecdotes. It revolves a woman accusing of Churchill of being what else? Hammered.
Uh.
The woman in question is unclear, but some believe it was the conservative Lady Astor. As
in Astor, she was on Titanic.
Ah.
That Astor.
Well, as the story goes, she made the remark, "You, Mr. Churchill, are a drunk." And what did Churchill allegedly respond with? "My dear, you are ugly. What's more, you are disgustingly ugly. But tomorrow I shall be sober. You will still be disgustingly ugly."
Vicious.
Yeah.
Man's got a point.
That's
Drunkenness is a temporary state of things.
Churchill was not known for being perhaps the nicest person on earth, being an imperialist.
That quote almost it reminds me of something from somebody told me in high school. I think it was from a comedian, but I couldn't begin to remember who it was. It was like, "Honey, you could run to Yemen, but you're still gonna be ugly in the face." Like as far as like trying to make yourself better, I guess.
Yeah. Ouch. Well, I think it's time to move on to our next person, a true giant in the field of drinking.
Yes, that's why I chose this one. My fellow Giganto, Andre the Giant, which I will say there on biographics, there is a great biography of Andre the Giant.
There's a good one on, I guess it was HBO Max, and it's now just Max. It's probably still there, about Andre.
Yeah, it was focused a lot on his childhood, which I was unaware of. And like, I know we don't get into it a lot in here, but when he started into wrestling, his real shtick, when he was a legitimate, fantastic, competitive wrestler, he was so agile, and that it pissed him off to no end that McMahon wanted him to be slow because he was so fast.
When he was young, just starting out, you can see videos of this. He was skinny. It's something to see. Anyway, let's get into it.
Anyway, with the man's size, Andre the Giant's real name, Andre Rene, I used to be able to say it, Roussimoff. Drinking was legendary for its amount. It goes without saying that the man was large and required more to get drunk than someone of more average height. I know this. Known to his friends simply as Giant or Boss, Andre was born on May 19th, 1946 in Grenoble. No, that's not how you'd say it. I'm just going to butcher it. Grenoble, France. And it's really hard to look at the man and picture him speaking French. But here we are.
Also, I like the fact that he's called boss because,
That,
yeah, that
the
seems
most
right.
accurate, yeah.
Sure thing,
Mhm.
boss.
Oui.
Do whatever you say. We.
But born in France, the child of Russian immigrants, shortly after his birth, he was diagnosed with a rare glandular disease, acromegaly, megaly, I don't know, which caused his body to overproduce growth hormones. As a result, Andre grew to a height of somewhere between 6'11 and 7'5 and a weight of over 500 pounds. His actual height and weight have been speculated about for decades. The business is notorious for inflating wrestlers' statistics, but Andre's illness sometimes made him slouch or bow his shoulders, so he might as well have been the advertised 7'5.
God, that's actually like kind of horrific to think of when you're like, well, not horrific, but it's like a thing to think of when you're like, when you see him, you always think of like, like stout and kind of slouching.
The Princess Bride.
Yeah, you think of him like just stretching out. You're just like, oh god.
If he were to stretch and stand up straight, you would just like jaw hit the floor. He first wrestled as Andre the Butcher, but it was Vincent J. McMahon Sr., owner of the New York's Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, who christened him Andre the Giant. It has been estimated that Andre the Giant drank 7,000 calories worth of booze every day. The figure doesn't include food, just booze.
7,000 calories in alcohol.
How are you going to maintain 500 pounds unless you make it happen?
Oh,
It's a lot of calories.
Quarter ton.
It becomes easier to just drink them rather than eat them. Because chewing would burn them.
yeah. That's wasted calories there.
Yeah. In 1977, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Chris, there's a big part of the reason this story is on here, other than it's fantastic, is because it involves Dusty Rhodes.
Wrestled
River Band.
Andre. Did you know Dusty's was it Dusty's son is now wrestling in WWF? I
I
think.
thought I heard something about that, but anyway, sorry.
Anyway, wrestled Andre at Madison Square Garden. Afterwards, the old friends went out on the town. They adjourned to one of Andre's favorite watering holes and took stools at the bar. Andre occupied two.
Yeah.
Several hours and some 100 beers later, around 75 of them were Andre's. They decided to head back to their hotel. Andre looked at taxis with the same scorn as most other conveyances and announced that he and Dusty would walk, which was a problem because Dusty was having trouble maintaining a vertical position. Andre studied the situation and a twinkling grin blossomed across his face. People who spent any time with the big man quickly learned to watch for that grin. It was a harbinger of danger. It meant that Andre was contemplating something risky, something with potential legal ramifications, but also, most assuredly, something fun.
Oh, God.
A moment later, the two huge wrestlers attacked a pair of horse-drawn carriages. Dusty threw a handful of paper money at one driver, while Andre hauled the other from his seat with one hand. While one driver cursed, the others scrambled around on the ground, collecting his windfall. Andre and Dusty thundered off in the carriage. Oh, for some reason in my head, I'm picturing this like animated in the style of Scooby-Doo. It's great. They raced through the Manhattan streets, dodging cars and pedestrians for 15 blocks before ditching the carriages and lathered horses a block from their hotel.
Can you imagine the one that had to haul Andre?
That horse would just be dead.
Just like, God, stop.
They just have to put it down. By the time the cops arrived, Andre and Dusty were enjoying snifters of brandy in the hotel bar, appearing as innocent as angels. The next day, The next day, they main evented another card at the Garden. Jesus.
All right. Sorry, that was just a fun drinking story. But next up, we have a legitimate feat of perhaps an unrecorded world record.
All right. Well, Andre once consumed 119 12-ounce beers in 6 hours. Well, that in mere mortal terms, that equates to a 12-ounce beer downed every 3 minutes nonstop for 6 hours straight. After the marathon drinking session, Andre understandably passed out in the hotel lobby and couldn't be moved or stirred. His friends resorted to draping him with a piano cover and letting him sleep through the morning.
He turned into Snorlax.
Yeah,
Essentially.
you had to play the polka flute to get him up.
Over a month-long period while filming The Princess Bride, Andre allegedly rang up, I love this one, rang up a $40,000 bar tab at the Hyatt in London. According to an interview with Carrie Ellis in Vanity Fair, Andre's go-to order was something called an American. 40 ounces of various liquors poured into a pitcher. I've never tasted airplane fuel, Ellis said, but I imagine it's very close to what that must taste like. Very potent indeed, and I remember coughing a lot. But to him, it was like chugging water.
God.
At least he shares, because that suggests he offered Carrie some swigs.
Yeah, I left off like the a couple other stories because like there's just so many about Andre's ability to drink and still be functional. But the next one I think highlights this very well.
Oh yeah, that so his size, and I hate to say like he was self-medicating because with his disorder he was in a lot of pain all the time, and he kind of knew his dosage of what it took to just function.
Funny you should say that.
When Andre needed surgery to help with the pain his frame was putting on his joints, the doctors ran into a problem when it came to
Anesthetizing.
Anesthetizing. I was one of the anesthesiology. I'm like, no, wait, we're not using it in that form.
Yeah.
They had no idea how much it would take to properly knock him out and not kill him, which was something they wanted to avoid. Finally, one of the doctors asked Andre if he was a drinker. Andre responded that yes, he'd been known to tip a glass from time to time. The doctor then wanted to know how much Andre drank and how much it took to get him drunk. Well, grumbled the giant, it usually takes 2 liters of vodka just to make me feel warm inside. And thus a solution was found. The gas passer was able to extrapolate a correct mixture for Andre by analyzing his alcohol intake. It was a medical breakthrough, and the system is still used to this day.
Yeah. Also, 2 liters of vodka just to start getting your buzz.
Yeah, just to warm up. That's how you get the night started. But like his drunkenness led to medical breakthroughs.
It did. This surgery, by the way, is the surgery just before the 1987 WrestleMania match with Hulk Hogan.
Oh God!
So like, and to his credit, this is the one Vince McMahon paid for the whole, Junior paid for the whole procedure if he wanted to do it.
Wow.
Jeez. So I gotta say, there's always those memes floating around of like women with a time machine, men with a time machine. If I had a time machine, I would definitely go back to the night that Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes hijacked horse-drawn carriages.
Yes.
And rode them through New York City.
Mm-hmm.
That's 1,000% where I would go.
Just, yeah. You know where you probably wouldn't want to go? Ancient Greece.
Let's say many times before that, honestly.
Well, time travel. It's a cracked video that I always remember that sticks with me. It's like, well, time travel is a white male fantasy.
Yeah.
They get to go back in time with impunity. Anyone else, you're going to have a rough time, depending on where you go.
You go back more than 30, 40 years, things start to get dicey.
Mm-hmm. Brittany would be a witch.
Yeah.
Burn her.
We'd be weighing her against ducks, and
hmm There we are. Yep. Well, I don't. There was no transition there. Sorry, I was going to be like, speaking of witches.
well, I'd started the transition, and then we
Yeah.
derailed it.
Well,
That's how we roll.
A
That's
better
how we roll.
transition would have been after saying Andre's name. But speaking of greatness,
Yes.
Alexander the Pretty Okay.
Yes. Alexander the Great.
Someone does that in a YouTube video. I almost stole the bit, and I was like, no, I respect them too much to steal that joke.
So there are a few people in ancient history as well known as Alexander of Macedon or Alexander the Great. He's known for conquering one of the largest empires in world history in a blazingly fast amount of time, never losing a battle and then dying around the age of 33 to a fever or poison or his rampant alcoholism.
There is debate about how he died, and part of it just comes down to some like I lean on fever. That's the thing that makes the most sense to me.
Mm.
But alcoholism is a solid one after you reread some of this bit. But they're like, oh, maybe it was poison because they just can't accept that Alexander the Great got sick and died.
Well, I mean, in that time period, it's like, well, anything could have. I mean, could have been anything.
I mean, the alcohol is poison.
True.
Mild poison. Yeah. So, what is less known by most people today is that he was, by our standards at the very least, most likely a raging alcoholic, according to many contemporary sources. Contemporary historians were all too eager to highlight Alexandra's love of alcohol.
Arian.
Okay. Writing approximately 400 years after Alexander's death, says
Contemporaries. There's some air quotes around some of these, but
I was gonna say
gotcha.
that's
I get to the end of the paragraph.
says he drank in moderation, but over time he began to drink to, quote, barbaric excess. Plutarch attributes his fondness for drinking on his warm temperament, whilst Quintus Curtius Rufus asserts that all of his qualities were marred by his, quote, inexcusable fondness for drink.
like you said, Plutarch, and then credibility starts to float out the window.
Those, I mean, one Plutarch had a lot of angles to grind with his his stuff. That is a Greek historian during the Roman Empire, early Roman Empire era, and I forget when Quintus Curtius Rufus is from, but that is a Roman name. So
yeah,
that. However, you can read the rest of it, but just putting context for how old all these sources are.
That's looking at it through Roman tinted glasses.
Yeah.
Who were
contemporary is a bit of a stretch when they're writing multiple centuries after his death, but they at least had the primary sources to read from then. So, yeah.
Which a lot of those we don't have.
Fair enough. That Alexander drank wine was a given. Wine was the drink of choice throughout ancient Greece, with plenty of good quality wine available, especially to kings and nobles. It's likely that the finest wines of Chios?
That seems right.
Chios?
Chios, maybe Chios.
Yeah.
If you want a more Greek accurate name, they didn't have like the CH sound. It would be like a hard K most of the time. But
I'm gonna go with Chios then. Chalcidius and Naxos. I'm sorry. Graced Macedonian banqueting halls with Bibline?
Yeah, Biblian and
and
Premian.
Why do I have the words this episode? You know what? I did this to myself. Wines from Turkey being the staple drink when on campaign. The ancient Greeks diluted their wine with water and viewed anybody who drank their wines undiluted as barbaric. The Macedonians, on the other hand, drank their wine undiluted, earning the derision of their more civilized neighbors.
Macedonians had an answer for that. It's called conquer and burn Thebes to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alexander's father, Philip, who himself was a big drinker, was even ridiculed in his own time with the Athenian orator Demosthenes.
Yes.
Quipping, quote, heavy drinking is a good quality in a sponge, but not a king. Ouch.
That's a good like classical burn.
Yeah. Well,
Classical in the
Yeah.
like historical sense, not music or
You can see the self-satisfied smirk after someone saying that in a public setting.
Mhm.
especially in Athenian, just going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I can also imagine is a bunch of Athenians in the theater, during this sort of public oration, just going like, "Damn!"
Snap. So let's highlight a couple of more notable drinking stories that happened during his short life.
I want to
So-
point out these are not in chronological order, but
Okay. Not long after Alexander arrived back in Susa, the Zagros Mountains in Iran, in 323 BC, after reaching as far as India on his campaign, his friend and philosopher, Calanus,
Calenius, I believe.
approached him and said he was going to immolate himself rather than live any longer as an invalid, as you do. Calanus actually went through with the deed, burning himself alive in front of thousands of people, and in his honor, Alexander decided to hold a drinking game. The rules of the game were simple. Whoever drank the most wine in one sitting would be the winner and would receive a golden crown. Obviously.
Mhm.
The prize on offer would have set most men up for generations, so there wasn't a shortage of contestants who set about drinking themselves stupid. 42 of them would quickly die of alcohol poisoning. Yeah. Promachus, who is that right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Who won the contest, having downed roughly 13 liters of unmixed wine,
Jesus Christ.
claimed his prize and the adulation of the Macedonians. He died 3 days later of alcohol poisoning.
Well, no shit.
Yeah.
All for a gymnosophist who had little time for physical pleasures such as wine.
That's the funny bit, like some sort of sophist philosopher, and was like, to deal with my problems in a stoic manner, and they go, "Let's party!"
Yeah. Oh dear.
13 liters of wine, unmixed wine.
Just crow.
Love of gods.
In one sitting. Like at
How
that
did-
point, you were
That it was 3 days later.
Yeah, the fact that it took 3 days, it had to have been because in the first day he slipped into the coma and his body slowly was shutting down for the next 2.
all I could think of was like, at 13 liters, it's surprising you didn't drown.
Yeah. So let's look a little further back to see probably the worst example of why you probably shouldn't mix megalomaniacal world-conquering desires with alcohol.
We gotta refuel the Wayback Machine to
Yeah.
get back into this one.
Whilst stationed at Persepolis, Alexander accepted an invitation to a drinking party with some of his friends. Unusually, his friends were accompanied by their wives and mistresses, and they made merry throughout the night.
Yeah, they
As the evening wore on, an Athenian mistress named Thais got up and gave a speech praising Alexander's deeds and imploring the party to burn Persepolis to the ground. Obviously.
All right.
Critias continues the story, quote, as the drunken whore gave her opinion on a matter of extreme importance, one or two who were themselves the worse for drink agreed with her. The king, too, was enthusiastic rather than acquiescent. They were all flushed with wine, and they got up, drunk, to burn a city, which they had spared while under arms. Alexander took the lead, setting fire to the palace, to be followed by his drinking companions, his attendants, and courtesans. Large sections of the palace had been made of cedar, so the conflagration quickly spread over a large area.
Yeah.
The burning of Persepolis, whether committed sober or drunk, was senseless desecration. Afterwards, Critias alludes that the Macedonians were ashamed that they had burned the city and that Alexander himself regretted it once sober. He even had a longtime advisor essentially tell him not to burn down the nice things that he just took in his conquest if he wanted to keep an empire.
This
So
this
it's
is
just
why we
like,
can't have nice
we can't have
things.
nice things.
Is this a whole thing just foreshadowing of a library burning? Like, look, you couldn't keep it together and not burn down nice things, so the nice things made in your honor shall be burned.
Look, that city, Alexandria, Egypt, was ready to riot at the drop of a hat. The fact that that library didn't get set fire to earlier is frankly a miracle.
Just all that kindling stored in one place.
But yeah, there's also some stories about Alexander cutting the arms off of one of his bodyguards. He got into a drunken fight with him, and then killing another guy by throwing a spear through him.
Like you do.
You shouldn't get him drunk.
Look, I mean, Rook gets out of hand.
No
All
joke.
right. Speaking of drunk people,
That is what we're doing.
it
We've
is.
spoken before about the
Casey, you're a little.
Sorry. We have spoken before about the ridiculous drinking of American author Ernest Hemingway, especially his love of absinthe. But we'd be remiss if we didn't at least try to mention him in a episode about historical heavy drinkers. I think of his recipe for death in the afternoon: pour 1 jigger absinthe into a champagne glass, add iced champagne until it attains the proper opalescent milkiness, and drink 3 to 5 of these slowly. Hear, hear.
Mm.
It was a local blacksmith who introduced young Ernest Hemingway to the world of drinking, giving him a glass of hard cider. That's everybody's perfect first entry into alcohol. Something
Really
slightly
is.
sweet, even.
Especially like in a nice like winter setting, like, oh yeah, have a little cider.
Yes. From the humble introduction of this, Hemingway went forth to engage the wide world of alcohol. Like nearly all great drunks, Hemingway was a wide-ranging omnivore when it came to the booze. While a young man in Europe, he absorbed enough wine, cognac, brandy, grappa, and absinthe to start thinking of himself as some sort of expert. He didn't consider a meal unless wine was served, and sometimes that meant 6 bottles.
Good lord.
You know. Or like 6 bottles of sake. That's the way it goes sometimes.
I feel personally attacked.
Oh, you should feel like you've got a companion here on that one. Hemingway was a prolific drinker, as documented by Philip Green in his guide on what, when, and where Hemingway drank. To have and have another, the globe-trotting writer drank daiquiris in Cuba, gin and coconut water in Key West, Bloody Marys in Paris. His advice: don't bother with churches, government buildings, or city squares. If you want to know what culture is, spend a night in its bars. If you don't want to know about a culture, spend a night in its bars. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool to see a lot of nice, cool buildings, but if you really want to get a feel for a place, go get drunk down there.
Real salt of the glass people.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of glass.
Well, swear be damned. He was not above drinking straight from the bottle. He compared it to a girl going swimming without her swimming suit. It happens. On safari, he claimed he was never inebriated, though his hunting companions testified his first drink arrived with the dawn, and that around the camp, his drinking would have killed a less tough man. While covering World War II from the front lines, he kept his canteen filled with gin and personally liberated, with the help of his private army, the Cambon bar of Paris's Ritz Hotel.
Just like that. Men, we have to do something very important. We need to save this bar. They come back and there's just like a Hemingway, I assume some French, what did De Gaulle call his army? But some of them and various groups, and they're just like, just sing the French national anthem as they're like just super toasted.
And then he faced a mutiny with his own private navy when
True.
hunting Nazis because they ran out of booze.
Yeah.
In Cuba, Hemingway cranked up his game. On a typical evening, he started out with absinthe, drank a bottle of good red wine with a dinner, shifted to vodka in town, then battened it down with whiskeys and sodas until 3 a.m. You know, I'm behind this whole process until you get to the 3 a.m. part.
Right. There's a certain point you're like, guys,
I got stuff to do.
How old
Well, I
was
mean-
Hemingway at this point, you know?
his Cuba phase, I want to say he's probably in like his 40. Let's see. He
Oh, my
was
goodness.
he was it is
If he ain't 25 or younger, then it's not in the cards for me.
Yeah, he was well because like he was in World War One. So I mean, he'd have been probably about 40 in World War II. So he's like 40 or 50 probably around now.
God.
Oh, I can't keep up.
Yeah,
right.
no, it's that's the thing. You're just like, I guess good on you, but holy crap.
Well,
Yeah.
although Hemingway was fond of telling visiting interviewers that he rose at 4:30 a.m. and never drank before noon, a journalist who actually observed him in action at his Cuban home reported that upon rising, Hemingway usually starts drinking right away and writes standing up with a pencil in one hand and a drink in the other. I suppose he was drinking the whole time, but seldom showed it. Friend Dennis Zafiro said, just became merrier, more lovable, and bullshitty. Without drink, he was a morose, silent, and depressed.
Uh,
Well, he was hungover. That's the problem.
I mean, he didn't have the regimen that Churchill had. Churchill had that, like, Churchill lived by that Archer quote where, like, you know, he's got to, like, taper off from his drinking or the collective hangover will kill him.
Yeah. Oh,
Churchill's was like The Rock's drink or like meal plan, but for alcohol. Like, he has to maintain, you know.
Yeah.
Maintain. According to the article, according to the article, most of this portion came to, contrary to popular myth.
Oh, sorry. That's a miss thing from. There's a bit I forgot to reword here. Let's just say. Sorry. According to an article where most of this came from. That's the section I got
Okay.
missing. For most of the according to
Gotcha,
the
I
article, most of
understand
this
already
portion
now.
came from. Came to. Should have been from. There's the problem. Sorry about script editing. There's a sentence my brain filled in. It's why someone else probably should have read over it before me.
It's just as easy.
Like, we're not even trying to be on that level, okay? Like,
Contrary to popular myth, according to the article, most of this portion came from, it was not the booze that drove Hemingway to shoot himself. He pulled the trigger after 3 months of forced abstinence. In lieu of alcohol, he was force-fed a steady diet of shock treatments and promises he would never be allowed to drink again. Hemingway's son wrote, he might have survived with alcohol, but he could not live when deprived of it.
That's that like the line about his friend saying he was, you know, morose, silent, and depressed, and then, you know, I'm certain the shock
then this-
therapies didn't help.
yeah.
However, there are two views of this.
However, there's a quote with a different idea of his life expectancy. The manager of the Gritty Palace in Venice tells me, the writer, the author, Anthony Burgess wrote in a biography. The manager of Gritty Palace in Venice tells Anthony Burgess, who wrote in a biography, that 3 bottles of Valpolicella probably, the first thing in the day were nothing to him. Then there were the daiquiris. Ah, yes, the daiquiris. Scotch, tequila, bourbon, vermouth, less martinis. So, of course, the best type of martini.
They stirred the vodka on ice while staring at a picture of the man who invented the vermouth.
The physical punishment he took from alcohol was actively courted. The other punishments were gratuitous. Kidney trouble from fishing in chill Spanish waters, a torn groin muscle from something unspecified when he was visiting Palencia, a finger gashed to the bone, and a mishap with a punching bag. All right,
More?
you had a little bit of a rough go at it. As British journalist John Walsh documents in his article on Hemingway's suicide, Ernest went to a doctor in 1937 complaining of stomach pains. Liver damage was diagnosed. He was told to give up alcohol. He refused. 7 years later, in 1944, when Martha Gellhorn visited him in the hospital, she found empty liquor bottles under his bed. In 1957, his doctor friend, A.J. Monnier, wrote urgently, "My dear Ernie, you must stop drinking alcohol. This is definitely of the utmost importance." But even then, he couldn't stop.
So yeah, there's a couple of different versions of that. Although I do question the one guy saying he was doing daiquiris. He was diabetic. He didn't do a lot of sugar. So some of the daiquiri, maybe he did some every now and then, but
Yeah, I've gone through a phase where he was like, "Oh yeah," it's like we've got to get a little healthier, so let's do it.
Toss some fruit in there.
Yeah, so some fruit in there, and then after a little bit, it's like, no, this doesn't really mesh with my diabetes. And
you got a choice: pancreas or liver. He chose pancreas.
he chose poorly.
Yeah, but that about does this for today's episode. It was a little long, but fun.
Fun and informative.
We can do more of these somewhere down the road. I'm thinking we can scrounge one or two more of these.
When the idea was floated, my number one idea was Ulysses S. Grant, who
would scream and rave and rant.
It was a legendary boozer.
Which was risky because the whiskey, he would then spill it on his pants.
You're just going to go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well,
look, I'll stop before I start getting into other presidents.
Well, we've all also been drinking during this. So
Sparkling Muscatel, one of the finest wines of Idaho. Would you taste it for us, please? Oh. Excellent choice. Should be for 95 cents.
I'll never not love that.
Right? It's so good.
The Steve Martin thing is it came up on our TV. That they're starting season 3 of that Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah.
Jeez, we still haven't watched the show yet.
Haven't watched it, but I in my head I was like, "There's no way this can keep going." And then I'm just forgetting that Steve Martin and Martin Short, they're fantastic.
They're just a delight together.
And apparently they have pretty good chemistry with Selena Gomez. And it's
I've seen them do interviews together, and that's like really fun because she's just like, "Yeah, we can't do text or email chains with them anymore. They're old men, and it's become a problem." And they're like, "Why?" They sign all their text messages. It's like sends a message like, "Dear Selena, blah blah blah, signed Marty." Marty, you don't have to sign them. But at a certain point, knowing them, they know.
They know damn well what they're doing.
So, Bob, I don't know if you saw it relating to everything we've been talking about. There was a children's book at the toy store we were at earlier. Mm-hmm. President Taft is stuck in the bath.
Oh, I did see that. Yes. I thought that was a book you found at Taft's Ale House.
No, that was at King Arthur's Court. I had to go peruse the children's books. I wanted to get it. But...
They had a lot of great books there, actually. A lot of great everything.
And yet we bought an $8 squishy donut.
Because that's what we could get away with right now.
Fair enough. So what have you guys been drinking?
We had to kick it off with a garage beer. What's it say on the can? Who are they claiming? Because it's from Braxton, but they've now spun it out into its own
Oh, I don't know.
for like tax reasons. They're like, no, it's its own thing. It's from
it's
Garage Beer Brewing Company or whatever.
It's Garage Beer loves Chachi.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's a genuinely good, like, just it's hot. I need a beer ass beer.
Yeah. I will say, Ethereal had one of those, like a Mexican cerveza style, like a Mexican beer style, with like lime added. It's like a little citrusy.
They do that.
Garage Beer has a lime, I don't know, variant as well.
And I was having that like on Friday, and I was just like, this is hitting the spot. It's warm. It's not as hot as it had been, but this is doing all right.
We got it last weekend for when her parents were up. I was like, we need a beer ass beer, and it's just a crispy boy. You can keep around. I was like, all right, we'll do that because we need a primer to get into what we were actually drinking, and because we don't do anything socially anymore except for this. So there's
Can you
no
count
more
Pokemon Go in the park as being social?
I'm not drinking with those people, so no. But literally, I've got like a whole level of the refrigerator that's nothing but Dark Lord, and I was like, I can't. I'm not gonna keep holding on to this stuff.
Pokemon Go line shares is all I'm saying.
If only.
One day, maybe.
So we cracked into a 2017 Dark Lord because I'm like, man, this is the oldest I've got in there, and they're gonna start turning. I mean, they're already turning.
It's still good.
Yeah, it's still. So I think the older they get, the more the soy sauce comes out.
Oh, I'm not getting that.
Interesting.
Oh, really? That's what I got. It's there's like no.
Should have had Chinese food.
We'll have to. I've got plenty left in there. The opportunity is still around.
Nice.
But still, I mean, this is from 2017. There's still amazing body on this thing. You've got some of the soy sauce character still hanging around. Big maltiness. I don't know. I mean, it still holds up. I mean, this beer's brewed to hang around this long or longer.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. I don't know. I'll never not find it interesting. There's something great about every vintage of it. I don't know. I've never had one that's like 10 years old or something. It might be bad by that point.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. We should have it actually we got another pack of the teriyaki meatballs from Costco.
Teriyaki pineapple meatballs.
Freaking good.
It was. We did it with rice. It was sticky rice. It was tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Bob, what are you drinking?
I have been drinking through a bottle of Glenlivet 12-year Scotch.
Oh, all right.
It really living the Churchill.
Just doing the Churchill section. I mean, I didn't have any soda. That was the only thing. I could have tried to do a Scotch and soda, but honestly,
why?
why? I just let's just be better for myself and just skip the soda. I don't need that taurine and
the pre-show of the when you're looking around, we suggested drink like Churchill, and it's no, you probably don't have any Scotch that's low enough on the totem pole to sully by mixing.
I mean, it's fair. I was looking back there going like, do I? No.
I look at my shelf and it's like if someone was over asking for a bourbon and Coke, I'd be like, you get it somewhere else because you're not mixing any of the bourbon on my shelf with anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, so it just reminds me like we need another clip just to have at the ready, like not for anything specific, but of Gomez from is it the second movie, I think, when he's like, not in this house. That just needs to be around.
But yeah, this is a nice it's a very nice Scotch. I've just been sitting here sipping on it, enjoying the whole night. Got a nice bit of flavor into it. I'm getting a nice like little peaty aftertaste I actually don't normally notice. Been a minute since I've had some, so I'm like,
I heard that originally as pediatric taste.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
It
got a
was like
nice. It's got a nice.
Pedialyte?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got a nice Pedialyte taste. That's what I'm gonna need if I keep drinking any more of it. But yeah,
Well, not
good
me,
s-
Bob.
it's a good scotch. What are you drinking, Casey?
I will not need Pedialyte if I keep drinking this because it's got enough water in it for everybody.
Drinking
And
Pedialyte.
that's Milwaukee's Beast Light.
Oh, the
yeah,
beast.
Right.
Is
Oh,
it
yes.
is it keeping up to how we think?
It's delicious.
That's
It's
Another
perfect.
good, like, it's hot out. I need
yeah.
something to just,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's what that's become the go-to. And again, we would have never gone down that road had we not done the light beer blind taste
May I
testing
say that
episode.
was my idea, and I
It
pushed
was.
for it. And guess what?
I supported you with it. I liked the idea.
I still love the gas station down from us. They have a sign.
That's a patron episode, by the way. That was something like from a while back. So I was trying to
Was
look through our show notes, and I was like, why can't I
Ah.
find this? Like, it's a patron episode. Yeah, do another of those.
well,
at some point if we have time.
Gas station down the road, they're missing a lot of their letters. So instead of saying we have, it just says wave.
Obviously.
And what does it say? It has MW Best Light because
Oh,
the beast is huge in the rural communities around here.
Mhm.
It's like there's if you get about 20-30 minutes outside of town and find a little gas station to pull in, they have it stacked to the ceiling because it's all those old farmers drink.
Those old farmers aren't wrong.
They drink a ton of
Like,
it. And
I
yeah,
kind
it's
of
like,
get it now. Like,
we
you're-
discovered is like, yeah, because it's not half bad and it's really cheap.
and
Yeah.
it is one of the ones that stayed like kind of crispy longer.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
warmer it got, it still stayed crisp. So I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, dog, that's where I'm going.
clean and tasty.
Ah,
Well, now that we've talked a little bit about what we're drinking, let's talk about the writer of this episode, which was Justin/Bob.
howdy. Yeah, there's a lot of sources for this one because this was a lot of just internet searching of find dumb stories for the thing because there's allthingsinteresting.com for some Winston Churchill stuff along with Bill Boket .medium.com. Thrillist had a couple of good articles. Drunkard.com had some great stories.
Sure.
Getyourcork.com had the article for Alexander the Great. And Salon had some depressing stuff about Ernest
Just
Hemingway.
the title of that one, Hemingway Drank Too Much, Our Strange Macho Romance with Papa's Alcoholism.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying the entire article was fantastic, but there was some stuff I could use in there.
There's some information. One way or the other.
And they're not wrong. We really should not romance alcoholism, which
No.
does feel like what we were doing this entire episode, but most of it was just kind of like, I can't believe they lived as long as they did. It did help that they were all rich.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Money
They had
somehow.
people around them like doing, other
Churchill lived to be 90.
Giant.
in that time period. That's also ridiculous.
The giant was not rich. To be fair, he drank it all away.
Mm.
Yeah, that's fair. But
You don't drink that amount and still have money when you're a professional wrestler.
yeah. But Alexander and Hemingway
Yeah, they were
both were doing pretty okay for themselves.
Pretty well.
Well,
Is
do
losing.
you know what you can do to do pretty well for yourself?
What can you do?
You can subscribe and get some great resources at haveadrinkshow.com or follow us at Have a Drink Show on social media and twitch.tv.
You can tell us your
Or
favorite drink
YouTube.
or
Is
YouTube.
it YouTube now?
YouTube now, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can tell us your favorite drink, ask a question, or just leave some general feedback. Tell us if you want. I would appreciate it if you would email in, and if you have legendary drinkers, let us know. Like if you know of,
episode 2 of this.
Yeah,
So
I've got some ideas, but I would like some audience suggestions if we can find them.
let's put the jackass disclaimer here. We will not submit or select from any individual stories.
Yeah, no,
Please
this is
do not. These drunk acts are performed by professionals.
Yeah.
With
Well,
community.
I mean specifically historical figures.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
will not open or view them.
But if you want to do that, you can use the email address feedback@haveadrinkshow.com, or you can use the feedback page on the website.
And as we've stated several times, all joking and fun aside, we'd like to remind everyone to please drink responsibly. Do
Don't
not take these as how-tos.
don't drink like these people.
Yes, they're
It was,
dead.
it was also very different times when much of this occurred. So yeah, it's a thing. All right. Well, you can check us out in another couple of weeks for the next episode. And remember to check out haveadrinkshow.com. Once again, I'm Brittany Lee Walker.
I'm Justin Frazier.
I'm Christopher Walker.
I'm Casey Price. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Stay thirsty, my friends.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
I held off on that as long as I could.